Well, hello, sports fans. It's your favorite program of the week. So it's not socially the distance. It's Athletics Chat, and it's number 88. Hello, Stuart.
Hey, good to see you, hear you, and all that.
Yes, my friend. We've got a lot to talk about today.
Yeah, we do.
I think I'm going to turn it around a little bit, and let's start with what's happening in the Ukraine. Since we chatted last week, Mr. Putin decided to do what he called a police action and attack the Republic of the Ukraine. And much of the world is listening to BBC World Service, which is providing one of the best in BBC Ukraine updates on what is happening there. And you have visited the Ukraine several times. And have a project there. And I've interviewed some of the athletes who I dearly care about. I'm going to let you start off with this, my friend.
Well, I think what sums this up is my friend and partner told me that he'd overheard his 3-year-old telling the family dog not to worry, the noise it could hear was Russian missiles. I mean, imagine a 3-year-old having to deal with that. I mean, it's funny. It makes you laugh and it makes you cry at the same time. I mean, I have no new words. What the Russians are doing is shocking. It's lies. And the frustrating thing is that the West, understandably, is wary of getting too involved because of starting a nuclear war. But I do not think that Putin will get away with this because, I mean, there was a report in my newspaper about an American who was living in Moscow and who decided he had to leave because he does all his finances on Google Pay and Apple Pay and all that, and of course they've all been shut down.
Oh yeah, no. I'm trained as a historian, and I look at this like I was taught about the Spanish Civil War. Putin is testing new military equipment. He was expecting an easy battle of it. And there is an arrogance there and perhaps a bit of delusion. The thing that I watched that has me questioning his control was I was watching Russian TV last week, and I was actually shown at about 5 a.m. on BBC and Deutsche TV. And he was pulling what I call the Donald Trump. He was ridiculing his head of security, the FSB guy, and challenging him on TV that was going all across the Russian Federation. And I'd never seen him do that before. And he seemed very short-tempered. He didn't know how the European Union or NATO was going to react. And after the U.S. had that imbroglio in Afghanistan, which they totally screwed up, and people died because of their lack of understanding of the Afghani military and what was really going on over there. I think Putin thought that he could get away with this. And the Ukrainians are standing up quite well. I'm getting relays on everything from, troop movements to how they're dealing with Russian military. And it reminds me actually of Londoners during the Battle of Britain in a lot of ways. There's been, I have BBC on constantly, the World Service, and there's interviews like with a historian, a teacher in Kiev, and how he's literally crossing battle lines to get his 96-year-old father food. And his understanding of English was quite good. He said that each time he has to go food shopping, it is a battle. And so it just tells you that it's quite difficult. And then before we got on, you and I and our production manager, Mike Deering, were talking about Sopot in 14 when we were interviewing Bohdan Bodarenko and several other of the Ukrainian athletes. And Bohdan was wonderful with us. His English was heartfelt. He didn't speak it as well as he would like, and he was a little embarrassed, but he got his point across. But what was very, very palpable was he refused to speak to Russian media because Mr. Putin had just decided to go into Crimea. And this is when we were all sitting in Poland, and the characters of Putin back then on Polish media were pretty big. And then I just saw a caricature of Adolf Hitler patting Putin on the head. It's from a famous picture near the end of the war, World War II. And it's the Ukrainians are holding up. And what has happened is, unfortunately, Russia, the Russian people are going to face the brunt of it. The IOC has now banned Russians from competing in their events. World Athletics under Seb Coe, which I am very pleased with, have banned the Russians and the Belarusians and their teams from the World Championships, the World Indoor Championships, anything to do with World Athletics, I believe, over the next year. And he has called the events horrendous. And for someone who has to live in a world of politics where statements come out from World Athletics sometimes, much like the Vatican, where you don't know which side they're really on, I thought that they really did a nice job. So congratulations to Seb and Jackie Brock Doyle for communicating clearly that World Athletics will not tolerate this. I think that's tremendously important.
And I think most sports have done the same. And that's the kind of thing which I think, insofar as public opinion is allowed to exist, that will annoy the common people that their sport has been taken away from them.
That, and then you were talking just a minute ago about PayPal and the gentleman in Moscow. What the EU has done now and the US has done is they have shut down SWIFT. And I do a lot of work in Europe, and you need a SWIFT number to be paid. And if Russian banks, and apparently it's the majority of the Russian banks, are not, they have no access. And on BBC they said that your Prime Minister needs to be a little tougher on some of the Russians who are living in London who have ties with Mr. Putin. And my guess is that will come. But this is moving very quickly, and our thoughts and prayers are with the people of Ukraine. It's just it's a scary situation, and but I think that people have to unite in the face of fascism, and Mr. Putin is what did my professors would have called him? He is in the guise of the czars of Russia,
Oh, yes, totally.
He believes that he has complete control, and that this is it's almost a divine right of kings,
But isn't this the irony that you had a Russian revolution to get rid of the oligarchs, and you replaced them with even worse ones?
Oh, yes. No, I really thought after Gorbachev had, I thought encouraged the breaking down of the Soviet Union. But you've got Putin, who says the worst thing that happened in the 20th century was the fall of the Soviet Union, and he blames the U.S. for it. And in a lot of ways, you can put that on the late Ronald Reagan, who bankrupted the Soviet Union by challenging them to a nuclear arms race. And while I hated that then and think that, one nuclear weapon is more than enough with about the 19,000 we have between our two countries, it's quite scary. And it's try to be kind to everybody, but also I think we have a moral responsibility to stand up for people that are being taken over and being subjugated, and that's what's happening now. So our friends in the Ukraine will keep you in our thoughts and prayers, and it's scary too, because you'd like to see someone stop the Russians, but I know if the US goes in, or Britain goes in, or Germany, or any NATO, it's World War III. And that's even scarier right now. So we will have to watch, but let's try to, you had a press conference today and you learned a new term. You want to chat about that?
Oh, yeah, I was just at a press conference about the selection of the 33 athletes that were representatives of the world indoors. And yeah, it was a fairly straightforward selection. It's a little bit complicated. I mean, I don't fully understand quite how it's working, but because they have selected Lorraine Egan and Jasmine Sawyers in the long jump, although neither of them has the qualifying standard. But I think because the qualifying standard is 680, and I mean, even the US Indoor Championship was won at about 650. So I think that they're obviously thinking that there will be insufficient athletes with the standard to fill the field, and that they'll be able to bring in people on ranking basis. But yeah, I mean, let's start with the background. By far, the best race of our championship was the 400.
Yeah, it looked fantastic.
And I mean, it was quite funny because you had two athletes with more famous sisters. You had Victoria Horrigy, younger sister of Christine, and Hannah Williams, younger sister of Jodie. You had an athlete that this podcast is a lot of time for, Jeffy Knight. He had the misfortune of falling in the Olympics. But, you had 6 people going in the 400, and first to 6th place was 0.68 seconds. And, you posted the photograph I sent you, and it really was just a blanket finish. I was pretty much in line with the finish, and I couldn't tell who had won it. And it was Jesse Knight who won, second, Keely Hodgkinson, and third, Amma Pippi. Now, where the controversy arises is that Keely Hodgkinson, silver medalist in the 800 in Tokyo, decided in the trials to run the 400. And when she finished, she said she would like to run the 4x4 at the World Indoors, but she wouldn't be able to run the prelim because she would be in the 800. But the point about that, unless she was either being presumptuous or a deal had been done for her to run because the way our selection works, the winner with the standard is automatic, and then the second place is discretionary. So at the time she had finished second in the 400, according to the rules, she had no guarantee of selection. She had no guarantee of selection in the 400 because she hadn't won it, and she certainly had no guarantee of selection in the 800 because she hadn't run it.
Yeah, but she'd run a national record. Did she think that her and her coaches? I mean, Jenny Meadows is a pretty bright coach. Did they think she got a bye or something else?
I suspect a conversation took place.
Yeah.
The head coach today was unwilling to confirm that. But shall we say, I'm not sure that everyone on the briefing believed it. And because where to me, and I actually wrote it in the piece, you had Gemma Ricci, who ran in the 800 and came second, and she has not been selected. So is there a moral case for saying, well, look, if you run in the trials and you run the 800 and you come second, a brilliant run by Jenny Selman to win it, do you not have a stronger case for selection according to the procedures than somebody who chose not to run and in fact ran a different event?
Who was selected for the 800 then?
Jenny Selman, who gets the automatic for winning, and Keely Hodgkinson, elected for the 800 after running the 400. I have absolutely nothing against Keely, and I think that Jenny and Trevor are brilliant people, and nobody can argue that Keely doesn't deserve to be in the world, having run so well. But, if you have a procedure, if you have trials, why bother having trials if you just go to say to somebody, you're pre-selected? That was my point. And similarly, Daryl Nita, who I have so much time for and respect for, told me last weekend at the Grand Prix that she was running the trials. And she didn't run the trials. And she's been selected. Now, again, she is an outstanding sprinter and has every chance of getting a medal. But I think that just what I'm saying is if you have rules and procedures, it's best to follow them and not to have exceptions.
Yeah. No, I concur. I think that you make a ton of sense. Any other selection surprise you at?
Well, of course, the indoors is an interesting thing because Adele Tracy won the 1500. She doesn't have a qualifying, but she said anyway, it was actually never in my plan to go to the World Indoors. I was just running because I fancied the race, and it's a great honor to be British champion. And so, there's a bit of that going on as well. No, I don't think. Jasmine Sawyers has been selected after finishing third in the long jump. Zahisha Thomas jumped further than her and didn't get selected. Again, if you're saying who is more likely to jump 690 in Belgrade, you would go for Jasmine all day long. But again, it's there are many things I don't like about the American system, but it's fair. It's fair. If you come second, if you come third instead of second, you don't have an argument because you knew the rules. I have two other things I just wanted to raise with you. We were using plasticine has gone, and we're now using electronic measuring.
Okay.
For the takeoffs. Haven't you caught up with that, Larry? That we now for both the Birmingham events for the jumps, they had an electronic, so that a jumper jumps, nobody looks at plasticine, and a red or a green light appears.
That's what I remember seeing a while back. Yeah, I think I saw that in Malmo back in 2015. Yeah.
But there were 53 jumps in the women's long jump, and 21 of them were fouls, which seems to be quite Sawyers had 4 fouls out of 6.
Wow.
And similarly, Lorena Eugene only took 5 jumps, and she had only 2 legal ones again. So, I don't know whether it's just early season and people are struggling with the rhythm, or in the back of my mind, I was wondering, is the electronic more accurate than the plasticine? And in fact, where some people are getting away with it. But one of the great things about the electronic is that after an athlete has jumped, they can go and look at an iPad on the judge's table and rewind and see exactly where their foot landed.
Wow.
So they can see, did I just miss it or was I well back on the board? So I think that is very useful. You saw lots of athletes who are taking that opportunity. But now, I have got a question for you.
Okay.
You are in the prelim for the 800 meters.
Okay.
5 runners, 3 will qualify for the semi-final.
Yes.
2 drop out before the start. 2 do not start. So there are 3 runners running for 3 places. Jeff Whiteman, in his commentary, said, if that had been me, I'd have walked round. But Cass Mary said, no, you've got to get your legs moving. You've got to get your rhythm.
Yeah.
So tell me, what do you think of that? If you had found yourself in a situation, would you have said to the other 2 athletes, can we just jog around? Can we just walk around?
It'd be nice to have that conversation, but I think athletes are too competitive, 1. And 2, there's the honest effort rule, unfortunately. Which officials, if they don't think you've made an honest effort, I believe that they can disqualify you. But
right.
no, I think it's kind of I think it's a strange one, completely. What happened to Jake? He's been sick, so he decided not to compete.
He had COVID, and to be fair, I don't think he was ever planning to do the World Indoors. But that was last week. Last week he said he dropped out for only the 2nd time in his career, and the other time was when his hamstring went. But he said that he was recovering from COVID and he just had no energy. And I mean, I have great sympathy for that because I recovered from COVID and I still have times when I struggle to walk up the stairs. Just suddenly it hits you, the energy is gone. So, but Jake was very upbeat about it, said, look, I'm planning to run my first outdoor race in May, and hopefully by then everything will be cleared and I'll be fine.
Yeah, good. He's a good guy, and I enjoy the whole group. I enjoyed your pieces on the British trials. Thank you. We've got them all posted. The 400, and it was nice to see Jess Knight so ebullient, so happy.
Yes, I mean, I thought that anyone could have won that. And rather amusingly, you had a hurdler and an 800 runner coming first and second. But Jessie was so strong. That was what made it. With 5 meters to go, it could have been anyone. But Jessie was the one who had the strength. Kelly Hutchinson hasn't run a lot of 400s, and she ran a PR, but Jessie Knight won it. And the nice thing is, I think that all of the 6 who got to the final have been selected for the relay sport.
So Hannah will be on the
yes,
and Victoria.
Hannah
That's great.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. I enjoyed. There's a couple lovely pictures you got last summer at the British Championships with Jody and Hannah, and I got a kick out of them. And I got to interview Jody this summer and really enjoyed talking with her.
Yeah, she's very articulate.
Scott Simpson was quoted in one of your pieces about with Holly Bradshaw out of the pole vault, that next level of women pole vaulters got a chance to really compete against each other. And it was a really good competition. What did you think of the competition?
Yeah, it was. Can't say I watched it from beginning to end because there's like an indoor meet, there's so much going on and you have to be down in the mix zone. But yeah, Holly is the only one. I mean, had Holly gone to the World Indoors, she would have been certainly in with a serious shot of a medal. None of the others are at that standard, and we now don't have a pole vaulter in the competition. But no, it was a good competition, and Scott coaches quite a number of different athletes, and he's always a man that I think has a lot of interesting things to say.
The U.S. Championships were happening the same weekend. They were in Spokane, Washington, in a brand new facility that's only had 3 events so far. And it's called the Podium. It's a 200-meter mechanical track. Seats right around 3,000 people. It's a good facility. And I think it's one of the finest that I've been to, and I believe that they will have a lot of other meets. Saturday, the men's pole vault with Chris Nielsen and Casey Lightfoot was a wonders competition. Chris Nielsen's coming off that 6:02 American record he did in, I think, in Leuven. And then a couple other events that night that were enjoyable was the women's 1500, where Elle Purrier led to the last 30 meters, and she was battling Josette Norris. And then in lane 3 came Heather McLean, who beat them both and won the 1500. It was a really exciting race. And that was followed up by the men's 3000, where Cole Hawker, who had run a 350 mile just a couple weeks ago, stayed close to the front and then, ran a under 225 in the last 1K, and it looked very, very good. And he came back the next night and won the 1500 using a 26.6 last lap, and set a meet record. Both races, and then the women's 3000 with Alicia Munson and Elle Purrier. Elle got a win over the weekend in that. Alicia led from the start to 2,800 meters, and Elle took over with a lap to go. But I think Alicia knew that she was going to have to push the pace to try to break Elle, and Elle thanked her afterwards. We were treated to a wonderful women's pole vault with Katie Najat and Sandy Morris. And Katie's been having problems this season. On Friday at the interview, I asked her a question: how do you recover from an Olympic gold medal? Can you really? Because she had said that she's been having problems finding new goals because her ultimate goal was winning a gold medal, and she's done it. And I remember the story Frank Shorter told after he had won the 72 gold and a silver in 76, and he came back in 80. And I had watched him run a 10,000 at the Martin Luther King Games, where he looked quite good. And he was fit for the marathon, and he ended up running a 2:22. And he was quoted as saying, after you've given it all to win an Olympic medal, it's really hard to bring yourself back there. And I was wondering if that's what Katie was feeling, but she got into a pretty spirited competition with Sandy and her and Olivia Gruber. And it was Sandy ended up winning at 480 with Katie at 475. But it's the best jumping that Katie's done since the summer. So it was nice to see her. She said she's got a heel bruise that's been really bothering her. And then I think the 2 other events to talk about are our friends Orion Krauser. Every time Ryan throws the shot now, people expect a world record. And in fact, on Friday night, I was sitting at the bar in the Centennial Hotel in Spokane writing articles, and I saw Paul Doyle, Ryan's agent, and I said, "What do you think?" And he said, "Yeah, I think he's ready for the world record." And on Saturday, Paul came by, and my girlfriend Kathy was taking some pictures of the meet. and I wanted to introduce them. And she was asking how Ryan was doing, and Paul smiled and said, probably a world record. Well, on Sunday, he had a great series of throws, world leader, 22:51, just not a world record. He had 4 fair throws that could have won, big time, and 2 falls. But he looked good, just wasn't a world record. So I think he'll leave that for Belgrade, And
Ryan said something very fun to me. He said, the great thing about being world record holder is you just need a PR to break the record. You don't have to worry about anyone else.
That's good. That's good. I like that. Our friend Christian Coleman, his second race since his ban had been shortened a little bit for missing 3 tests. He ran 6:55 in the heats, came back and ran a 6:45 world leader. Looked great. Good, very strong start. A good, strong race. I was talking to a coach, a keen observer of the sport, and I asked him about Christian Coleman, and he said, Christian needs to concentrate over that last 40 in the 100. In the 60, I think he's pretty solid. It's going to be interesting to see him and Marcel Jacob in Belgrade. I think that it will take a world leader to win. So it will. That should be a wonderful race. And then, of course, Grant Holloway. Grant looked good in his heat, and in the final, 7:37, clean race. As is his wont, he had the lead after the 3rd hurdle, and Jarrett Eaton was second in 7:47, which made him happy. Devon Allen had a less than happy race, but I spoke with him after the race, and he said that he has spent the last month trying to get ready for this, and this is the indoor season. He's got the World Championships in his hometown in Eugene, so it'll be interesting to see how he comes into shape this spring. But it was all in all an exceptional meet. What I really liked was how many parents brought young kids. I sat in the stands, then go into the press box. I like to get a feel from the fans what they're thinking of an event, and so got to chat. There was a gentleman sitting next to me with his granddaughter, probably in his mid-80s, an official, and was just kind of giving her a little play-by-play of all the events, and she seemed to really enjoy it. And then there was a young dad with 2 daughters, 4 and 6, and he had them at the meet the whole time. A lot of young parents bringing kids, which was really fun because I think the tickets were rather reasonable. They did everybody wearing masks. You had to have a clear plastic bag. You couldn't bring any purses or anything in. Media could bring their backpacks, but I have one of those clear backpacks. Security was, present, but it was.
That's interesting. That's interesting because we were maskless unless you chose to wear a mask.
Yeah.
And there was a kind of, I say, quite half-hearted security check on the way in.
Sure. Yeah, no, it was interesting. I don't know if they were on their best behavior because it was a first event. When we went into, we have a new official bar in Spokane, the Satellite Diner, where we had a lovely breakfast and a beverage and sandwiches in the afternoon after the meets. And yes, you wore a mask in there, and then you took your mask off when you sat down. So it's just kind of the way it is. Each state's a little different in the U.S. California, Oregon, and Washington are a little tougher than, where I've been in Wisconsin, where, when you go into the big city, Madison, you wear a mask inside everywhere. But in my town of Fort Atkinson, very few people do.
Well,
and it's just kind of the way it is.
If I were a cynical person, and I do not have an ounce of cynicism within me,
No.
I would say that our Prime Minister has relaxed the mask rule not because of the science, but to increase its popularity.
Yes, well, that's what I think that people are doing here too. The CDC says you should wear a mask if you are compromised, and I keep one on me all the time. If I have concerns, I do. Obviously, when you fly in the U.S., I mean, I just did 3 flights in 4 days. Yes, you're wearing a mask all the time, but the airports are full over here again now. And when I flew a year ago, there was no one out. That's why I let my beard grow like a Chechen warlord's, and I decided to cut it because we got to be in places and looking charming as always, Stuart. We've got to do that. That's part of the role.
Just to say that the attendance at our national championship was probably a disappointment, but then I think it suffered from being in the same arena as the Grand Prix the previous week, which was a sellout. So people who could only afford one clearly thought the idea of seeing Elaine Thompson and Grant Holloway, etc., was a better use of their money than going to a British Championships where they knew that Dina Asher Smith, etc., were not going to be running.
Yeah. Will you be going to Belgrade?
I will.
Good.
I have booked, unless Mr. Putin decides that he would like to annex Serbia as well.
Yes.
But yes, I have booked my accommodation, I booked my flights.
Well, I am in the process, and I'll making my decision tomorrow, and so I will share with you. But we will have fine coverage of that event too. I'm going to be posting stories on the U.S. Championships all week. Got a ton of things to do, and since I'll be sitting in a room in lovely San Jose, California for this next week. And Stuart, thank you again. You survived Athletics Chat 88, my friend.
Indeed.
All right. You have a great week, and I will check in with you later this week. Cheers, my friend.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, sports fans. Larry Eater, RunBlogRun here. This is the epilogue for Athletics Chat number 88. Stuart Weir and I had many topics to discuss. The first one we commented on was the Ukrainian Russian conflict. The Russian Federation, led by Vladimir Putin, decided to do what they euphemistically call a police action in Ukraine, the Ukrainian Republic, which is a democratically elected government. And the world has responded in a very, I'm pleased. Would I like to see military support in the Ukraine? Yes, but unfortunately that would cause World War III. So they're hitting Mr. Putin where it hurts by cutting off SWIFT codes, which means Russian banks cannot bring money in or send money out. And they have targeted key people around Mr. Putin. It's already affecting the Russian economy. Ukrainian defense forces are holding on much stronger than most people suspected. The world sympathy outside of Belarus is with Ukraine. I did hear today that the Georgian government, which had a war with Mr. Putin about 2003, 2005, they've been rather cautious. They're not supporting the EU events, but what I think will come out of this, I think there'll be a huge price for Putin to pay globally as well as within his country. What's happening on the global sports side is the IOC has now banned Russia and Belarus from Olympic sporting events. World Athletics has banned Russian, Belarusian athletes, coaches, and trainers from World Athletics events. FIFA has banned them from soccer and taken away a very important football cup. And most of the world sports federations have acted in the same way. So there is a huge price for this. The biggest price right now is being paid by the Ukrainian people, and our thoughts and prayers are with Ukraine. And there are ways, PayPal is suggesting some ways that you can donate money and help Ukraine. So check that out. I think there's some good ideas there. And BBC World Service is probably one of the best resources for information. You can pull the podcast down and you can listen to them 24 hours as I do. Among other things that we discussed, the British trials were held last weekend in Birmingham at what I used to call the NAI Stadium. I can't even pronounce what they call it now, Utility or something Stadium. But some fantastic races, the women's 400, the women's 1500, women's 800, the men's 60, and the men's 1500 were fine races. You can see articles about them on RunBlogRun, courtesy of our European editor, Stuart Weir. You'll be seeing articles on the USATF Championship starting today, courtesy of moi. I was in Spokane and really enjoyed this facility, the podium. It a 200-meter mechanical track. Really interesting how they move the levels up. It's much like the one on Staten Island. Seats about 3,000 people. Good crowd. It could have been a little better, but it was a good crowd. One of the better ones that I've seen, and some great performances. Saturday, Chris Nielsen and Casey Lightfoot went at it in the men's pole vault. On the women's shot put side, Maggie Ewan went 1979 in the shot, world leader, and she looked fantastic. Women's 1500, Heather McLean made this move with about 30 meters to go, pulling the Bernard Lagat, and she beat Josette Norris in second and El Purier in third. And then the final event of the evening was the men's 3,000 meters. And Cole Hawker, who had run a 7:39 at the Millrose Games, used that last 200 to perfection and won the 3,000. He would be coming back the next day in the 1,500. On Sunday, we got to watch Grant Holloway run a 7:37 60-meter hurdles. And he just talked about how he wanted to go on to Belgrade and win the world indoor gold there. The women's pole vault was Katie Najat and Sandy Morris. Katie Najat had one of her, actually had a really good day. She finished second, but she battled Sandy Morris, and Sandy won in a 485 jump. She looked very, very good. Also have to hand it to Christian Coleman in his second event of the season. He went 6:55 in the semis and 6:45 in the final to win going away. In the final event of, the 800s were wonderful. Ajay Wilson led from nearly the start to the finish. Olivia Baker in second, and Ajay won. She looked fantastic, quite impressive. In the men's 800, Bryce Hoppel and Isaiah Harris went 1-2. Bryce uses this move on the last lap, and he's got incredible finish over the last 100 meters. And Isaiah looked fantastic, so it's nice to see both of them. The final distance event was the men's 1500. Cole Hawker used a 26.6 last lap and was quite impressive. And it'll be, with a nice double, it'll be interesting to see if he's going to run in Belgrade. I'm not sure if he is or not, but we'll know in the next few days when they name the U.S. team. But all in all, I think things are really looking good for the World Indoor Tour. How the Ukraine-Russia war will disturb Belgrade, I don't know. I know Serbia is very loyal to Russia. And I'm not sure what will happen with that. I'm keeping my fingers crossed, trying to decide if I'm going to go or not. The World Race Walking Team Championships is this weekend in Muscat, Oman. We'll have some coverage of that with pictures. There'll be video to watch on Peacock TV if you get a chance to do that. And check a replay of Peacock TV for the U.S. Championships from this past weekend. This is Larry Eder with RunBlogRun, Athletics Chat 88. This is the Epilogue. Thank you to Stuart Weir in Oxford, England. Thank you to Mike Deering, our production manager in Indianapolis, Indiana. And this is Larry Eder in San Jose, California. Stay safe.